This is Sharon Beck from Brandman University talking about my reflective journal for week 2. And I think this week one of the things that really was the most interesting to me to think about was all the concept of what makes a leader be different or special. The idea of integrative thinking versus just plain linear thinking was quite fascinating to me. The whole concept of the dialectical, that if you take two pieces, two opposites, that really the best way to do it is to make a third if you can figure out what that might be and how that affects a leader, and kind of the whole systems idea that the whole is every piece has a part in the whole. I found it all real interesting to think about. I guess another piece that struck me from the readings was the whole thing about every error is part of all creation. I think that's an idea in Porter O'Grady and Malik's book, that all creation is made up of, some possibility of error. I think I've always gone for perfection rather than completion, and I know Carl Jung talks about completion as being more important than perfection. He even wrote a book about Christianity called The Illness That We Are, that talks about the concept that Christianity focuses on perfection, and sometimes people need to have errors in their lives in order to get to completion, emotionally, to really get to completion. So I thought that was really very, very interesting as I read some of the literature that we had to read for this week. I guess when I think about things on a more personal level this week, in week 2, I really found this course so far looks to me like it's going to be one of the most interesting courses to me, and I would not have particularly expected that. In fact, when I looked through the curriculum as I chose Brandman, I realized that when I saw this course, I thought this was a course specifically about innovation, and that we would be writing all kinds of creative proposals and having to think of things no one had ever contemplated before. But clearly that's not what this is about. It's about learning to be a leader in the healthcare field. I guess when I thought about becoming a DNP, I didn't really focus, even though I knew DNP leaders are obviously people who are trying to create leadership in the field. I really didn't think of it that way at all. Instead, I thought about being a nurse practitioner and doing my own thing with my own patients. And the more I've thought about leadership roles, the more I've realized that I have a lot of leadership things that, ways that I've been as a leader. And it really kind of fascinated me that I had really never thought about this much. I mean, I've done some management positions. I've done some management when I wasn't the manager. I remember when I first came to the hospital 6 years ago, I'd been there about a year, and our consultant came in, and she stopped me one day in the hallway, and she said, "Boy, Sharon, I think it must be difficult to see as many patients as you're seeing and to manage the department, because of course you and I both know that you are actually managing this department, even though you aren't getting paid for it and you don't have the role." And I looked at her kind of surprised, because I really hadn't thought of it that way. But I guess sort of I have been in a covert way rather than an overt way. So that's what I've been thinking about this week. Thank you for listening, and I'll talk to you again next week.